I realized that life really is a gift and that you really should try to enjoy every day in your life and also take the chances that you get, because you might just get them once, you know?
She was called the most beautiful woman alive, the model with the longest legs in fashion history, the blonde angel. Her face was on every magazine, her stride on every runway. She stood among the supermodels of the 90s, Cindy, Christy, Claudia, yet somehow seemed even more untouchable, as if sculpted from another world. But here's the thing about perfection. It doesn't last forever. And for Nadja Auermann, the same beauty that made her a global icon would eventually become her burden. One moment, she was at the peak of the industry, courted by Versace, Chanel, and Valentino. The next, she seemed to disappear, retreating from the spotlight, scarred by scandal, leaving fans and the fashion world asking, what happened to her? So how did a shy girl from Berlin, once teased for being too tall and too strange, transform into the blonde angel of fashion? And why did she vanish when she seemed destined to reign forever? This is the story of Nadja Auermann, the angel who conquered fashion, disappeared from its stage, and left behind a legend that refuses to fade. Picture this: West Berlin, 1971. A city divided, a country rebuilding, and a little girl who didn't fit in anywhere. Nadja Auermann was born into an ordinary German family, both parents working in banks, raising their children with the stability and discipline that post-war Berlin demanded. But Nadja herself was anything but ordinary. From the start, she was different. Taller than the other kids, more awkward, more withdrawn. At school, she was teased for her long limbs. Her height made her seem less like a girl and more like something strange to be mocked. For a child who only wanted to belong, that kind of isolation cut deep. And then there were the health battles. Nadja spent much of her childhood in and out of hospitals, undergoing kidney surgeries at ages 4, 6, and 9. Doctors told her she might not make it. For a child, it was a brutal introduction to fragility. But for Nadja, it also created something else. A sense that every day was borrowed time, and that you had to take chances before they slipped away. Her sister was the first to tell her the truth, that what made her different could also make her powerful. "You should be a model," she said. At first it seemed absurd. Nadja dreamed of becoming an artist, maybe even a circus performer. But the seed was planted. And then came the moment of destiny. 17 years old, sitting in a Berlin cafe when a scout stopped her and asked if she wanted to model. Nadja said yes, almost casually, not realizing she had just agreed to rewrite her entire life. But saying yes was the easy part. What came next would test everything. Because if Berlin had made her feel like an outsider, Paris was about to show her what it really meant to be invisible. Paris in the early 1990s was not kind to newcomers. Nadja arrived armed with nothing but her height, her face, and the scouts' promise that she could make it. Her first months were brutal. 10 castings a day, endless metro rides, and doors that seemed to close faster than they opened. She was tall, striking, undeniably beautiful, but still unshaped, not yet the vision the fashion world demanded. The turning point came when she signed with elite model management in Paris. Suddenly, the rejection slowed, and Nadja began appearing in French Vogue and in early campaigns. But even then, she wasn't quite unforgettable. As one photographer put it, she was beautiful, but she didn't yet have the hook. That hook came from a decision so simple it felt reckless. Nadja bleached her hair platinum blonde. What seemed like a whim became a rebirth. Almost overnight, she was transformed from another tall German model into the blonde angel. Designers and editors couldn't get enough. She was no longer a face in the crowd, but the face everyone recognized. Karl Lagerfeld noticed immediately. For Chanel, Lagerfeld had been searching for a model who could embody both classicism and edge, elegance and mystery. Nadja became his answer. He cast her in his shows, brought her in his world. It wasn't just the face, it was the conversation and the energy.
Karl total toll fand, wenn man seine Inspiration kannte und verstanden hat und darüber sich austauschen konnte.
To Nadja, he was more than a mentor. He was a figure in an industry where loyalty was rare.
Also Chanel hat immer unheimlich Spaß gemacht, weil es unheimlich Spaß gemacht hat, mit Karl Lagerfeld zu arbeiten, weil er immer so voller Leben und Enthusiasmus.
With his backing, doors opened everywhere. Dior, Valentino, Versace. By the mid-90s, Nadja was no longer running from casting to casting. She was being called directly, booked by the biggest designers and shot by the most legendary photographers. She was on magazine covers across Europe, her image gracing billboards, her walk instantly recognizable on the runway. And then there were the legs. At 44 inches, Nadja's legs earned her a Guinness World Record for the longest in modeling. A fact the press loved to repeat. They became her trademark, her weapon, the physical detail that set her apart even in the crowded world of supermodels. From Berlin outsider to Paris obsession, Nadja Auermann had finally claimed her place. But as the blonde angel soared higher, the 90s supermodel machine was just beginning to test how much even an angel could endure. By 1994, Nadja Auermann wasn't just working. She was everywhere. That year alone, she pulled off a coup that cemented her place among the supermodel elite, appearing on the covers of Harper's Bazaar, British Vogue, and American Vogue all in the same month. Very few models had managed such a feat. It wasn't just exposure, it was coronation. Her ascent was captured in pop culture too. George Michael cast her in the music video for Too Funky, alongside Linda Evangelista and Tyra Banks. Millions of people who had never flipped through a fashion magazine suddenly saw Nadja strutting across their television screens. Cool, aloof, and unforgettable. A year later, she appeared in the Pirelli calendar, the industry's ultimate stamp of icon status. Designers couldn't get enough. Versace put her on the runway in daring miniskirts alongside Cindy Crawford and Christy Turlington. Dior, Prada, Valentino, Armani. Nadja's face became a constant across glossy campaigns, her icy blonde look defining the mid-90s fashion mood. She wasn't simply fitting into the supermodel group, she was shaping its image. Photographers described her as an enigma. Ellen von Unworth shot her for Vogue and declared her unreachable, a beauty that seemed at once inviting and untouchable. Richard Avedon, Steven Meisel, Peter Lindbergh, all obsessed with different sides of her. Lindbergh, who shared her German roots, captured Nadja as both otherworldly and strangely human, talking about how she could switch expressions as if channeling entire stories mid-shoot. Part of Nadja's allure was that she resisted being one-dimensional. She wasn't the smiling all-American, nor the sultry Italian vamp. She was a chameleon. With each campaign, each runway, she could become a different woman. Elegant, androgynous, even intimidating.
I can be a femme fatale, very sexy, styled. I can look a little bit like a man. It's always depending what the designers want you to look like. It can be very ladylike, I think, I hope.
That range made her invaluable on runways and in campaigns. Fashion in the 90s needed fresh archetypes, and Nadja offered exactly that. But at the very height of her fame, when every cover and every catwalk seemed hers, cracks were already beginning to show. The supermodel machine that had made her an icon was also relentless. A cycle of flights, fittings, campaigns, and appearances that consumed every part of her life. For Nadja, the question wasn't whether she could keep up. It was how long she could stay on top before the industry's hunger for something new turned against her. By the late 1990s, the fashion landscape was shifting under Nadja's feet. The age of the glossy supermodel was giving way to something grittier. Kate Moss and the heroin chic movement had arrived, replacing statuesque glamazons with a new ideal. Smaller, thinner, rawer, almost anti-beauty. Nadia's platinum hair and impossibly long legs still turned heads, But the culture was moving in a different direction. The calls slowed, the campaigns thinned, and for a model once called perfection, irrelevance was the greater insult. At the same time, Nadja's own priorities were changing. In 1997, she gave birth to her daughter, Cosima, and in 1999, her son, Nicholas. Motherhood grounded her in a way no runway ever could. For a woman whose life had been measured in airports and call sheets, the shift to raising 2 children was profound. She didn't quit modeling, but she no longer lived for it. She worked selectively, stepping in and out of the spotlight, never fully chasing it. In her words,
I just don't like to think about the future. I live from day to day because I think the destiny will decide what happens for me. And I'm trying to make every day happy.
which is why the next chapter wasn't more runway. It was reinvention. In the early 2000s, Nadja appeared in German films like Sleeping Beauty's Silent Death and The Last Chapter. They were small productions, more art house than blockbuster, but they signaled a search for identity beyond the runway. Still, the industry wasn't ready to see her as an actress. To most people, Nadja would always be the blonde angel. Then came the blow that changed everything. In 2011, German authorities charged her with tax evasion, accusing her of failing to declare more than 270,000 euros in income between 1999 and 2002. The case dragged her back into headlines, but not for beauty or glamour. For someone once elevated as flawless, the coverage was merciless. Angel became fallen. She was convicted and fined nearly 90,000 euros. It wasn't financial ruin. Nadja's career had been too successful for that. But it was reputational damage of the kind fashion rarely forgives. The scandal marked the end of her supermodel untouchability. Once a muse to Lagerfeld and the face of Versace, she was now framed by tabloids as another star undone by hubris and paperwork. Nadja withdrew further, appearing only occasionally for retrospectives or interviews in Germany. She wasn't erased, but she wasn't present either. For the public, she became a ghost of the 90s, a reminder that even angels can fall, and that in fashion, the price of perfection is not just glory, but exile. After the scandal, Nadja never returned to the 1990s pace, but she didn't disappear. She worked on her terms. Occasional editorials, museum shows, and carefully chosen appearances. In 2015, the Circle reunited. Cindy Crawford, Helena Christensen, Eva Herzegová, Karen Alexander, Nadja Auermann, and Tatjana Patitz for Peter Lindbergh's The Reunion for Vogue Italia, a quiet proof the 90s never really left. In Germany, she stayed visible on television and at cultural events, and she launched a small, personal perfume project in the mid-2000s. Her influence didn't fade. The Guinness-noted 44-inch legs, the platinum hair and glacial stare that set a blueprint, and a chameleon ease photographers still talk about. For fashion historians, she embodies a specific supermodel archetype, aloof yet human, and her images with Avedon, Meisel, and Lindbergh continue to circulate in exhibitions and coffee table books. Today, in her 50s, Nadja lives largely on her own terms. She spends time with her children, occasionally posts on social media, and appears at select fashion events. She doesn't need constant visibility to matter. Her legend is already written. Because Nadja Auermann's story isn't just about a rise and a fall, it's about what comes after. How someone once called the blonde angel can retreat from the spotlight yet remain a permanent reference point for beauty, power, and reinvention. Let me know what you think of Nadja's legacy in the comments. I read them all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.